Welcome back to Shadowy Delights, your source for spine-chilling horror stories. Before we dive into today's terrifying tale, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Now, sit back, relax, and prepare to be captivated by another shadowy delight. I never believed in ghosts or urban legends until I encountered the locker room ghost at my high school. My name is Emma, and this all started during my junior year. Our school had a long-standing tale about a girl named Lily who died in the locker room under mysterious circumstances decades ago. They say she was bullied relentlessly and one day, she just disappeared. A week later, her body was found stuffed inside a locker. One evening after volleyball practice, I stayed late to finish some homework. The school was eerily quiet, and the lights were dim. I went to the locker room to change, and that's when I heard it. A faint sobbing sound. My heart raced, but I told myself it was just my imagination. As I was changing, the sobbing grew louder and more distinct. It was coming from the far end of the locker room. I decided to investigate, even though every instinct told me to run. I walked down the row of lockers, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the empty space. The sobbing was coming from locker 329, Lily's locker according to the legend. I held my breath and opened it. The locker was empty, but the sobbing continued, now right behind me. I turned around slowly, and there she was. Lily, or what was left of her. Her face was pale and twisted with pain, her eyes hollow and dark. She reached out to me with bony fingers, and I could feel the cold radiating from her.
Help me.
She whispered, her voice raspy and filled with agony. I was frozen in place, unable to move or scream. She grabbed my arm, and a searing pain shot through me. I yanked my arm away and ran out of the locker room, never looking back. The next day, I had a bruise where she had touched me, dark and shaped like her hand. I told my friends, but no one believed me. They thought it was just a prank or my imagination. But I knew the truth. Lily was real, and she wanted revenge. I avoided the locker room as much as possible, but strange things started happening around me. My belongings would go missing and turn up in locker 329. I would hear her sobbing at night, even in my own home. It was like she was haunting me, and I couldn't escape. One night, I stayed at school late again, hoping to get some peace and quiet. As I walked past the locker room, the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. The lights flickered, and I could hear her sobbing, closer and closer. I screamed for help, but no one came. The cold wrapped around me, and I felt her bony fingers on my neck. The last thing I remember was her whispering,
Join me.
And then, everything went dark. My name is Rachel, and I went to Lincoln High School, where the legend of the cursed classroom was infamous. Room 217 was said to be haunted by the ghost of Mr. Thompson, a teacher who had a mental breakdown and hung himself there years ago. They say he was driven mad by the disrespect of his students, and now he seeks revenge on anyone who dares to disrespect him. It was a rainy Thursday when I got detention for talking back to a substitute teacher. As luck would have it, detention was held in room 217. I tried to get out of it, but the vice principal was adamant.
Face your punishment,
He said sternly. I walked into the classroom, my heart pounding. The room was cold and musty, with old desks and faded posters. I sat in the back, hoping to blend in and get through the hour without incident. The teacher left us alone to think about our actions, but I couldn't stop thinking about Mr. Thompson. The minutes ticked by slowly, and I started to relax, thinking the legend was just that. A legend. But then, the temperature dropped, and a strange feeling washed over me. I heard a faint whispering, like someone was talking just behind me. I turned around, but the room was empty. I shrugged it off, blaming my imagination, but the whispering continued, growing louder and more insistent. I could make out words now. Disrespectful. Punishment. Suffer. I tried to ignore it, focusing on my homework, but my pen flew out of my hand, skidding across the floor to the front of the room. I hesitated, then walked to the front to retrieve it. As I bent down, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The lights flickered, and I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I whipped around to see the ghostly figure of Mr. Thompson, his eyes filled with rage.
Why are you here?
He growled, his voice echoing in the empty room. I couldn't speak, paralyzed with fear. He gripped my shoulder tighter, the cold seeping into my bones.
You'll learn respect.
I was thrown across the room, slamming into a desk. Pain shot through me, but I managed to get up and run to the door. It wouldn't budge. I pounded on it, screaming for help, but the other students were gone. I was alone with him. Mr. Thompson appeared in front of me, his twisted face inches from mine.
You'll stay here.
He whispered, his breath icy.
Forever.
I blacked out, and when I woke up, it was morning. The door was open, and the school was bustling. But I was different. I couldn't speak, my voice taken by the ghost. I tried to tell my friends what happened, but no words came out. They thought I was traumatized, and I suppose I was. To this day, I can't enter room 217 without feeling his cold hand on my shoulder, his whispering in my ear. I left Lincoln High School, but the memory haunts me. Mr. Thompson got his revenge, and I am forever cursed by that night. I'm Claire, and I used to go to Brookwood Middle School, where the story of the phantom janitor was well known. Mr. Jenkins, the janitor, was a quiet man who kept to himself. One night, he was accidentally locked in the boiler room by some pranksters. He pounded on the door for hours, but no one heard him. By the time they found him the next morning, he was dead from the heat. Now, his ghost supposedly roams the school, seeking revenge on those who wrong him. It was a dare, of course. My friends, Sarah and Jessica, thought it would be funny to lock me in the boiler room overnight. They knew I hated the dark and small spaces, but they didn't care. They said it was just a harmless prank. That night, we sneaked into the school, laughing and joking. But my laughter died in my throat when we reached the boiler room. It was dark and smelled of rust and old machinery. They pushed me inside, giggling, and slammed the door shut behind me. I heard the lock click, and panic set in. I pounded on the door, screaming for them to let me out, but all I heard was their laughter fading down the hall. I was alone. The room was stifling, the air thick and heavy. I tried to calm myself, thinking it was just for a few hours. But then, I heard it. A faint shuffling, like someone dragging their feet across the floor. I froze, straining to hear. The shuffling grew louder, and I saw a shadow move in the corner of the room. My heart raced, and I backed into the wall, my eyes wide with terror. The shadow moved closer, and I could make out the figure of a man. Tall, gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to bore into my soul. "Who's there?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The figure stepped into the dim light, and I saw his face. Mr. Jenkins, the phantom janitor. His expression was twisted with pain and rage.
You locked me in here.
He rasped, his voice echoing in the small space.
It wasn't me!
But he didn't seem to hear me. He moved closer, his ghostly form flickering like a candle flame.
You'll suffer as I did.
His voice filled with venom. The heat in the room intensified, and I felt like I was suffocating. My vision blurred, and I could barely breathe. The walls seemed to close in on me, and I knew I had to get out. I stumbled to the door, pounding on it with all my strength, but it wouldn't budge. Mr. Jenkins' laughter echoed around me, a cruel, mocking sound.
No one will hear you.
He said, his voice fading as the heat became unbearable. I blacked out, and when I came to, I was in the hospital. They said I had been found unconscious in the boiler room, suffering from heat exhaustion. My friends had come back in the morning to let me out, but it was too late. I had been in there for hours, alone with the phantom janitor. They apologized, of course, but it didn't matter. The experience changed me. I couldn't go back to school, couldn't face the boiler room or the ghost of Mr. Jenkins. I transferred to another school, but the memory haunts me. Sometimes, I still hear his laughter in my dreams, and I wake up in a cold sweat, feeling the heat and the suffocating air. The phantom janitor got his revenge, and I will never forget the terror of that night.
Your support means everything to us. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Click the video on the screen for more shadowy delights.